is an interesting one. It makes a little bit of sense on some levels. I don't know if it makes financial sense in the fact that it's more expensive, but basically what it is the state of Florida is now building a deportation holding center at the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport, which is an airport that they use for training in the middle of the Everglades. And their whole conjecture is, we don't need fences. Where are they going to go? If they get into the Everglades, they're going to get eaten by an alligator or killed by a python. Yeah. And that was literally how they were phrasing this.
Yeah.
So what I find problematic is they're going to take this aircraft runway and put soft-sided structures, which I'm translating as tents, to hold the deportees.
Okay.
This is Florida. This is hurricane season. This is just north of Miami. You want to put people in tents in there? And how are you going to get rid of them?
What the hell do you think Miami was? What, did you ever go to Tent City?
No.
They chose to live there.
No.
In tents. It's all tents.
Well, did they have any choice?
It's all tents. No, they left Cuba.
Okay.
And they got here. And then Reagan said, okay, we're going to let that slide this time.
Okay.
And then they all lived in tents for years.
Really?
In tents in Miami.
Never got blown away by a hurricane.
Of course they did.
That's what I'm wondering.
But every house did too. Every trailer did too.
Well,
Well, you want us to?
Well, a wall would help.
You want us to build them a mansion?
I don't want you to build them anything.
They're illegal.
And better still,
They're living in a tent, probably getting 3 meals a day.
I don't know about that.
Oh,
but, you know,
they're getting fed.
Okay.
You know,
right.
And
it's like jail. It's like your bologna sandwich on white bread.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
but it's interesting because it's convenient that there's an airstrip there.
I don't want them to build a multi-million-dollar facility.
Well, it's interesting because the money's coming from FEMA, and at first I said, great. So if we have a problem in the country that needs FEMA, well, not that there's a FEMA anymore, but that needs FEMA reliance, they're going to use this money. It's not. It's a separate pool of money that started under the Biden administration, which was to repay cities for their shelter and service programs for illegal immigrants. Right. No, illegal immigrants.
Okay.
And then Donald Trump clawed back $80 million of that, basically out of New York City, because he said these people were living in hotels. Okay. So the money's not coming from, if there's anything left in FEMA.
Blake's got a picture of it right there. That's a heavy duty structure.
Well, in all honesty, I think they're living in tents in Texas detainment centers as well.
Yeah.
So, the hurricanes don't look through Texas.
Pull up a picture of Tent City in Miami for Lenny.
Isn't that in the parking lot for the Florida Georgia game and outside for the Daytona 500? Aren't those tent cities too?
Those
are RV cities.
Those are RVs.
Right.
Those are a different level.
Because most of the people outside of the Daytona 500 in tents outside of the parking lots are just like third party die-cast sellers.
Yeah,
vendors. Yeah,
they're vendors.
Die-cast sellers.
Yep. So Blake, pull up Tent City, Miami. So he's got an idea of the population of how many people lived in Miami.
So are they Marielitos? Was that after the Mariel boat lift?
I think some are, and some people have been living there for like decades.
Still,
yeah.
The rent must be cheap.
Yeah. So there it is, right there.
That looks like a lot of tents.
Yeah.
Looks a little hard structured to me.
No. Those are all tents along the sidewalks there.
Yeah, well, you're fine. That's Skid Row in Los Angeles. That's under any overpass where there's homeless.
But that's not a keep looking on the Tent City. That one's not. I mean,
poor representation.
There's
okay.
It is a whole.
I wasn't familiar with it.
There is a whole village, a Tent City here.
I'm trying to look my best. There isn't like a good overview of like every single tent village because it's kind of hard to be in the area where now just to confirm, Freetown's not like a tent city, is it, in Miami?
Yeah, they might be calling it that.
All right.
Is it Freedom Town? Is that what you said?
Let me check. Yeah, here.
Yeah, but Bobby, they don't have hurricanes in Arizona.
Oh, yep, it was Freetown. Hold on, got the photo.
Okay, you find it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Boom.
Those are just people.
Not a tent.
There's tents right behind there's tents on the left and on the right.
That looks like a flea market.
Yeah, it probably is. Cubans.
Keep trying.
Cuban cigars everywhere, though.
That would be nice. Yeah. Ybor City, baby. Way to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Good cigars a good thing.
All right, but I do have a photo for you of the Texas immigration, like what's currently at the border in Texaco, Texas. Texaco is a gas company. I'm going to pull up the image for you right here, and this is what the current setup looks like right now. So it'll basically be like this setup.
That's a big ass wedding venue.
Indeed.
Okay.
But still dwarfed by the Jeff Bezos wedding though.
Which, by the way, got moved to a different location in Venice because the protesters that were going to put inflatable crocodiles in the Grand Canal and clog it with boats don't have to because they forced them to move to a different island. So poor Jeff and Lauren's wedding is a little bit bludgeoned.
Yeah. So it was Tent City at Miami Stadium is where
the Orange Bowl.
That's where I was talking about. Yeah.
So I just think this is convenient because now that the Supreme Court says you can send anybody to any country, whether they speak the language or know the country, you've got an airstrip there. So they're going to go in. Yeah, they're not going to be the tents long. They're going to be on an airplane 15 minutes later, and they're going to end up somewhere in, a country they don't know.
Yeah.
Which is really, do we have deals with these countries to take these people in? And is there any oversight? And I'm sure it's out of sight, out of mind as far as the United States is concerned, or certainly the administration. What happens when these people get to a country where they don't speak the language? It's not like when you get out of jail, they give you a cardboard suitcase, a suit, and $5.
Well,
what's going to happen?
A lot of them aren't speaking the language in the country they're
I understand
in right
that.
now.
Well, fair enough.
So what's the difference?
Well, because they got relatives here, and they can ostensibly try to find a job.
And I don't know if you've heard my 100% strategy. I've had this strategy my entire media career with the illegals. We give almost $900 million to Mexico.
Right.
Okay, in aid. I say every time we have to send someone back to Mexico, it comes off that bill.
Sure.
All right? You start losing money, maybe they'll start doing something about it.
Well,
but every time we have to spend, or send someone back, say it's $12,000 to send them back with all the processing and everything. That just comes off the bill. And every time they do it, it comes off the bill.
Good.
So
yeah. Economic factor.
Yeah.
Well, but it's moot at this point in time because according to Donald Trump, just this afternoon on my way into work, and again, let's presume the hyperbole is not in play and this is accurate, though I'm not quite sure. There have been 0 border crossings this month. 0.
That's ridiculous.
That's what he said today.
That's ridiculous.
He said it in front of every cabinet member, which he listed off like it was an attendance list in 3rd grade. He said 0. He's very proud of that. And if that's true, fine.
That's ridiculous.
Well, he said nobody wants to hear about the border anymore because the border is fixed.
No, that's ridiculous.
Well, have you met Captain Hyperbole?
DJ, you're wrong. It's not true.
Yeah.
So
I'm just passing along the information.
It's like saying he solved the homeless problem in the country. Yeah, no, that's not true. It's not going to happen. You're not going to have 0.
I didn't say it. He did.
You're not going to have 0.
Maybe they didn't catch anybody.
Yeah, that might have been what it was, but yeah,
right.
It wasn't 0.
And he's also expanded the military zones across the border as well to, increase a couple of military bases to now include borderlands. I think there's one in Arizona and another one in Texas that got stretched out to make them militarized. So we'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. Look, fine. Keep them someplace else. Yes. Not a problem.
So last month that was available, according to CBP. For May fiscal year 2025, there was 12,452 crossings at the border. So
that's not 0.
It's definitely not 0, but
you use the Z word.
All right.
0.
Okay.
All right, but that's not the only Alligator Alcatraz they're building.
Where they putting another one?
They're putting another one in Clay County.
Okay.
So that'll be the second one that'll go in and go up. It'll be in Clay County.
Now, the interesting thing for the state of Florida is
over near Camp Landing.
It's costing Florida $450 million a year to build this one down by the Everglades, and $450 million. Probably to operate it, not necessarily to build it. How much does it cost to put up a tent?
Why? Why would it be that much?
Well, the question is, are we going to get reimbursement?
$450 million. I got to fact check that one.
Well, you got labor, you got supervision.
Yeah, but $450
you got razor wire. You got to feed the alligators and the pythons?
450 million.
I'm just reporting what was in the paper today.
Yeah, for one facility. That does not.
It was in today's paper. Doesn't mean it's accurate, but that was what I'm quoting.
That math's not mathing.
Okay.
So.
But the question is, will it be reimbursed by the federal government? And there's some question of whether or not the federal government will reimburse us for this. So, we shall see.
Yeah.
And again, it was out of the FEMA money that Biden started using, which is what Trump's going to use now for the same thing. Mm-hmm. Soft-sided shelters on an airplane runway. My question was hurricane season. It's overseen by the Florida Department of Division of Emergency Management. And apparently this one, for whatever reason, there was, something that there were annotation that it was $187 per prisoner. And this was up to, this one is $400 per prisoner or something like that. So the math there is strange as well, because it's more expensive to do this in Florida on an open air. You're not building structures. You don't have a tremendous amount of infrastructure, and it's already there. So we'll see what happens. Mm. And the reason they're doing this is because this administration has not met their mass deportation quotas, so they need more space to put more people in places so they can mass deport them.
Okay.
They're behind schedule.
They're behind schedule on their mass deportation.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So but that's it. But I think it's interesting because I love the fact that we don't need fences. Where are they going to go? It's the Everglades.
Well, the other thing is if they're getting through the process, they're already in an area they have no idea where they're at.
Right.
Contrary to what Donald Trump says, a majority of these people are not hardened.
They're not coming from mental institutions. They're not coming from insane asylums.
That is such a small fragment.
Right.
There might be one or two.
Absolutely.
But that is such a fragment of what these are people that are looking for a better life for their families.
Correct.
They didn't go
out
through
of
the
desperation,
process.
and a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, some of them didn't have horrible life, but it still was better to be here.
Correct.
And and they're looking for it. Most of the people I know that have taken this risk they're doing it for their future family.
Correct.
Not for right now. They're doing it for the next generation. And those guys they're not going to run.
No,
because they have other legal people that are wanting them to get through this process.
Yep.
So
sponsors or family members.
It doesn't make any sense for them to run anywhere. So if it was these gang members and stuff like that, guess what? These tents won't work. So it's kind of contradictory of what's being said out of the White House. Granted they're illegal. They are a major strain on our economy.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not what he's perceiving them to be 100%. So
right. Right. Yeah. Well, he's just
got too many notes over there.
He's just bastardizing
your notes are fighting with your notes.
Always. Kenny's saying Biden got us behind big time. Well, Biden deported more people than Trump in both his terms. Trump's first term, he did 2.1 million removals. Biden did 4.6 million. So, Biden didn't get us behind. He might not have gotten us ahead, but Donnie can talk out of his, both sides of his hyperbole any way he wants, because the man makes up shit every time he talks.
Yeah, his numbers are.
There's no veracity,
Yeah. His numbers are constantly questioned.
Yeah.
So,
but he just, look, it's like anything else. Say it with confidence, and he certainly does. He says it with bravado and brio.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's interesting. Look, you know what? You got to keep them someplace. You got to move them out. They're not going back to their home. Apparently, these people aren't going back to their home countries. They're going to end up somewhere in South Sudan. You got to take, people from Mexico and end them in South Sudan. That's going to work out well.
Mm.
I mean, at a certain point in time, there's a concept that this administration cannot embrace.
They
and it's called compassion.
And willingly. Here's the thing with me. They knowingly and willingly broke the law.
Sure.
I don't know. I think that's just as much hyperbole coming from the Democrat side, sending them to South Sudan.
Well, that's where they're going.
That's where
one of the places.
That's where we're being told one of the places. But how is that more affordable than sending them back to their regular country?
It doesn't make sense to me. And what are they going to do there?
When
and are we going to have to pay South Sudan to take them?
When it doesn't make sense, it usually means it's somebody who's just blowing smoke. So, because it doesn't make sense to send them there. If they're from Honduras, send them to Honduras.
Of course.
If they're from Mexico, send them to Mexico. It's cheaper.
For us.
Yeah.
And for them.
Yeah.
But I'm under the impression that we are then at the other end of this paying countries to take these people.
Mm-hmm.
We're not sending them to South Sudan and say, have a nice day. Mm-hmm. We're paying these countries to accept the people that we're deporting, which is, again, why it doesn't make sense to send them back to their own country.
Yeah. Sorry. It sometimes it's when it smells like a rat, it usually is. So
okay.
Hey,
Blake, could you see if we're paying other countries to take our deportees, please?
I'm checking that right now.
Thank you, sir.
No, and we don't always do the smartest thing, but South Sudan, I don't understand that with it. Or countries paying us to bring him there.
No.
Okay. So
I don't. You think they got a labor problem in South Sudan?
They might.
You know what it is? They're going to get drafted because South Sudan's fighting a little bit of a civil war right about now.